Carson, Leno, Fallon. Now, it's Wine Talks with Paul K.
Hey, welcome to Wine Talks with Paul K. And we are in studio today, about to have a conversation with Claude Rouquet of Cathayard Vineyard. Introductions in just a moment. Wine Talks, of course, available on iHeartRadio, Pandora, wherever you hang out for podcasting. Hey, have a listen to a show that I just recorded with Yves de Launay. He is an expert in luxury goods, having been with Sotheby's, Cartier, LVMH, selling Louis XIII cognac, and now Chateau Angelus. Incredible conversation. And certainly the conversation with Michael Higgins, a photojournalist of wine who has created 3 amazing travel tomes, one from Argentina, one from Bordeaux, and one from the Central Coast. Interesting take on the wine world through the lens. Always find what you love at Total Wine and More. With so many great bottles to choose from at the lowest price, it's easy to find your favorite Cabernet or single barrel bourbon to try with some help from one of our friendly guides. And with every bottle comes the confidence of knowing you just found something amazing. With the lowest prices for over 30 years, find what you love and love what you find only at Total Wine and More. Curbside pickup available, delivery also available. Visit TotalWine.com to learn more. Spirits not sold in Virginia and North Carolina. Drink responsibly. B21. You know, I say this every time I read this. What does B21 mean? I mean, do you think it's just like they're telling you you need to be 21 in order to drink in America, which everybody knows?
I think that's what it's all about.
How about
it's either this or a reference to World War II, but
it's like that. It's
or
like
the music band, right? No, B-52.
It's B-52. No, it's like the French imperative. You know, écoute, écoute, right? Listen, B21. I don't know. Anyway, and welcome to the show, Claude.
Hey,
glad
thank you, Paul.
So happy to squeeze you in today because both of us are slammed, and you're on the road doing some things. But glad to taste these wines and have a chance to catch up on what's going on out there. But obviously, with your accent, you're from France.
Wait, what are you talking about?
Wait, Doc, you came to the U.S. because of this project?
No, I've been in the U.S. it's been 12 years now. I used to work in Burgundy for a major Burgundy family, and they basically offered me a position in a trade in California. So that was in 2012.
So you came here from a Burgundian house.
Correct.
And now you're with a Bordeaux house.
Yeah, and in between I was with a Champagne house.
What a mess.
Oh, no, it's all good. The good news for me is I started with Burgundy, which is where everybody typically ends.
That's true.
So I kind of went a little backwards.
You know, that's an interesting comment because I think it's Jason Pahlmeyer, one of those who tried to buy property in Burgundy, and they threw like a 12th century rule at them, and the thing fell out escrow. This is years ago. But the comment was, all enophiles end up in Burgundy.
Yeah.
Why?
It's either Burgundy or Bordeaux. Well, because like everything, when you start a journey, you start with the easy part.
Yes.
You start with what's like upfront, straightforward, easy, accessible. And then you move towards the more, I dare say, intellectual, more elegant, the more subtle side of things. So I believe it's the same with books. You start with Harry Potter and you end up with Nietzsche or
Yeah, right. That's true.
It's the same. Nothing wrong with Harry Potter, by the way. But
no, that's right.
It's just to like kind of give the trajectory.
You asked when we first got here, like, can you be controversial and can you say stuff that may not be properly ascertained in the wine world? And I don't really care. You can say what you want because the idea is to discuss what the wine world's doing. So if you come to America for a Burgundy house and you work for Champagne in between, which is incredible, and then you end up in a Napa working with a Bordeaux house, what is your path? I mean, you're trying all these different things, or you feel like you've settled somewhere that's kind of interesting?
I have a very politically correct answer to that. No, but that for once is actually true. My path is integrity. It's like there's, wine, it's like a music. There's like good wine and shitty wines in every region.
Yep.
So my goal, my path is to stick to the good stuff.
Yeah. Well.
And there's like great people and people with amazing integrity in all regions of the world. and I can be like a 100% Burgundy, like loyal, eternal lover. I will also say at the same time that, in my opinion, Napa Valley can technically produce the best wines in the world.
Wow.
And I don't understand why not every winery is not doing it. But it's just...
That is a pretty bold statement.
Hey, wait for 2023 vintage, Napa Valley Red.
They say it's incredible.
It's going to be the best wines in the world.
Wow.
I am pretty bullish about that.
So here's an interesting thought that you just created, actually. When you say that there's lousy, crappy, let's use the word shitty wine in the world, in every region, which is true. But isn't there also then wines that are not indicative of where they're from, but are popular because A, they have a lot of sugar, or B, they have whatever. And I think you know where I'm going is that in the Napa world, they've settled on this style of wine, which is opulence, too much bricks you talked about earlier. Yep. And that's not what Napa really is it?
Well, it all depends how you look at it. There's a portion of Napa Valley, and look, if you ask the French guy, a little bit of not controversy, but a little bit of snobbish attitude right there. If you ask the French guy, I mean, the whole difference between the new world and the old world, when you think about it, it's like the new world has more the tendency to just copy paste a recipe and make wines, and that will tend to all taste the same. And that concept translates very much so into Napa for like a portion of it, but the other portion of it is absolutely stunning. So that's it's all about either you apply a recipe and you don't grasp, you don't embrace everything that is around you, which people can call the terroir or whatever that term is. So either you apply that recipe, or either you just like follow your guts, you follow your intuition, you follow your knowledge, you listen to the people who've been there before, and you create your own path.
Can you say that about Bordeaux, Bourgogne, Champagne, that there is let's just use the two big wines in Napa, right? Caymus and Silver Oak. These are popular wines. They get good money for them. People like them. I can't go wrong if I pour them because people know what they are. But you and I know that they're not necessarily indicative of terroir and the things that kind of make Napa run. Mm-hmm. Is there an equivalent of that in let's say Bordeaux or Burgundy, where there's just this mainstream character that people like but don't appeal to, let's say?
So the answer is yes, absolutely. I mean, ask Sébastien here in Bordeaux. There's a bunch of like massive producers making Bordeaux Supérieur. They buy grapes. They make tons of wine. So the answer is yes. Burgundy, Burgundy is a small world, so I won't drop any names, but there are some big négociants in Burgundy that do just that. Yeah. Some of them are great, by the way. Some of them, okay, I'll take one. Take Jadot. I mean, Jadot, you can go wrong.
Yeah, right.
You can't go wrong. There's people who are trying to be like Jadot, and they don't make wine as good as Jadot, but it's the concept exists everywhere. I will say, though, that in the New World /California /Napa, the amount of, like, I would say, processing, I don't know if it's a good word, but it could be sometimes a little
good word.
Overwhelming. I mean, for us European.
Yeah.
It's because we sometimes we reach the point where the wine does not speak anymore. Right. Because it is That's completely trapped between, in a cage of, tannins, oak, extra acid. It's like, where's the wine?
I like that terminology. It doesn't speak anymore, because it's so important to speak not only of the terroir but the vintage itself. I think
the
it's
people
okay.
behind it, and the whole thing.
Yeah. So you said something earlier that I thought was really fascinating. And that was the snobbish attitude. I think you were referring to some of your countrymen, but we won't say that right now. But it's also a very public thing right now. There's a whole movement, not only in the consumer side, to be more appealing, to remove the aristocracy, to remove the snobbery of wine, which I'm not sure really is a deliberate piece of wine. Wine is complicated. It's hard to know. You can learn as much as you want to learn and never stop learning, or you can learn only what you like and move on. It's perfectly fine. So I'm wrestling with people that are saying, we got to remove the snobbery. We got to remove the aristocracy. But can you do that even?
Well, I'll cut you right there. We're not heading in the right direction here.
Yeah, really?
No, like, look, it's wine by essence, by definition, belongs somewhere.
Yes.
It is a rooted product. It is a product that comes from a place.
Yes.
It's a product coming from a place, so that basically means it's related to geography. So if you want to be interested and if you want to progress into your wine knowledge, you have to know some geography. End of the conversation. So some people don't want to learn geography and they say, oh, wine is complicated, it's snobbish. No, you're a lazy, lousy, individual and you don't want to look at a map. That's different. Yeah. It is not about snobbery. And I'll just leave it right there because I genuinely think that's the truth. And obviously, I love looking at maps. So this way, I put myself on the good side of the
Okay,
of the
so
spectrum.
This is very interesting you say it because it's true. It's absolutely true. Anybody would tell you that if they study wine, their worldwide geography grows exponentially because you have to know.
Of course.
And I'm coming to Bordeaux in May. We're going to the Monaco Grand Prix. We're going to Piemonte, Monaco Grand Prix, Bordeaux, Paris. I'm talking to my friends who are on this trip, and I'm telling them, like, well, we can go from Piemonte, we can drop down to San Remo, drive up to, and they're looking at me gloss-eyed because they don't understand that. I didn't really understand it until I studied wine, and so it's a fascinating byproduct to study wine is international geography.
Yeah,
and you feel so much more comfortable when you travel like that.
International geography and local geography. I mean, you can look at it through all the different layers, but it's geography with a capital.
And so the aristocracy then, I guess it doesn't come from the fact that you're putting fermented grapes in a bottle. It comes from the fact that you need to know these things, and if you don't know them, you feel like
don't know them, you don't understand what's going on. Right. That's for sure. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's like when you're at school. Either you have a teacher, the teacher's there to teach you stuff, and either you want to learn it or you don't want to learn it. Yeah. It's and I can be a little like harsh on that particular subject because I believe that people don't learn, or I believe that people are not curious enough just in general.
That's true.
It's just like my take on things in general, and geography is essential. Yeah. You cannot, geography exists.
Yes. It's critical.
It's like space. It's like you'd say, oh, like space and time, right? Well, space exists.
Right.
So space, geography, terroir, wine, maps. That's all the same conversation.
Were you always going to be in this business growing up, or? Yeah.
If I did that my whole life?
Yeah, I mean, were you going to, as a child, were you going to be in the wine trade?
No. My dad's like a doctor, like a family doctor. And my parents always had wines for lunch, for dinner. So since I was a kid, my brother and I were poured little sips of, this is Chinon, oh, this is Cahors, this is Bordeaux, this is Champagne. It's white, but it has white black grapes. This is Burgundy. Oh, Burgundy is only Pinot Noir. Huh? So I grew up with those messages, since I'm a baby until I left home. So I always had the baggage, the background, like the survival kit. I worked in different industries, and eventually I said, I want to do something that I really resonate with, and I came up with wine, and it's a match. And Sébastien knows, we all know here that once you start working in the wine industry, you don't do anything else.
Right. The gentleman that was sitting in your chair this morning, he was a waiter and a bartender, and he was curious, and that's not always the case with bartenders and waiters. Some will never care about the wine they're pouring and just move on to the next thing in life, but it bit him, and now he's making wine in Napa Valley as well. So Smith Lafitte, one of my favorite wines, Bordeaux houses, decided, and this is the part that's interesting to me, because the New World, you already used the word New World. And I don't know if you know this or not, but the Institute of the Masters of Wine has dropped the use of New and Old World, which I think is kind of bizarre. But regardless, Smith Lafitte, clearly one of the great Bordeaux houses and been around for I don't know how many hundreds of years, but has decided to come to the New World. And this is, as you know, since you're a Burgundian, at least by trade, was the New World of the Oregon Valley was very appealing to the Burgundian houses to come to the New World and experiment. Is that the curiosity that Smith Lafitte carried into buying Flora Springs?
I would not define it as a curiosity, and I would not compare it to what Drouin has been doing in Oregon, for say. It's like, so Smith Lafitte has been purchased by Florence and Daniel Katiar in 1990. So they've owned it for 40 plus years. They originally, when they were younger, they were ski athletes. So they were in the French Olympic team of skiing, so not in wine. Then both of them had like exceptional careers in different fields. And eventually, a little bit like I did 15 years ago, they decided to concentrate on something that they would really, be emotionally connected with. And that ended up being wine. So they sold their businesses, long story short, and with that money, they bought Smith Lafitte, which Smith Lafitte 40-something years ago was not where it is now. It was in the limbos. It was like the castle was all like needed like to be fixed. There were holes in the roof. The wines lots of wine was made. It was not very good, etc. So they basically took Smith Lafitte from the limbos and they brought it to where it is now.
So you said 1990.
1990. Yeah.
Isn't that fascinating to you, being in this industry, that a property such as that, which is now famous for its hospitality as long as its wines, would even be in any kind of disrepair, that it would just let go, and then all of a sudden, and I remember the story now. Didn't they own a sports chain, retail? Yeah. So isn't that bizarre to you as a personal basis? Like that, how can this happen? That how can these houses go into disrepair? And maybe it's just age. Maybe it's just
it's age, and it's also linked to the take Pichon Baron. I mean, Pichon Baron 20, 30 years ago was not in a good spot. And since, and I don't want to look, I don't know the story very well, but since it changed, let's say, ownership / management practices, and it's now back where it belongs. So, Bordeaux, because of the classification, those chateaus, the risk, the downside of this classification is that they're entitled, literally. Yeah. They're literally entitled.
Yeah.
So when you're entitled, you can become a little lazy. And you can, can just like
That's a good point.
Keep relying on the title and not focusing on what needs to be done. So we're back to the integrity I was mentioning earlier. And Florence and Daniel Katiar, they went big time, in that particular segment, and they brought Smith Lafitte where it belongs. Just a quick detour to the original question. When they were young, so between their ski career and their what they did afterwards, they actually traveled to the US. They went to Woodstock, believe it or not. They actually took pictures. They took pictures of Jimi Hendrix playing at Woodstock.
Come on
stage. They were on the stage.
That is fascinating.
It's just some good stories. So, and from there they rented a car and they drove back and forth across the US, and they ended up kind of randomly in San Francisco through Napa Valley. So they were 25 years old.
Yeah.
And they were like, wow, look at this place. This is amazing. Can you imagine one day we can live here and we'll do something? And so that was kind of where it started. Then they bought Smith Lafitte years after, and they always had in their minds, so maybe one day we'll do something in Napa. I remember we had such a crush over there. And in 2019, some real estate, luxury broker that they had worked with in the past called them and say, hey, look at you, what's up? I remember you mentioning that you would be interested one day, potentially, maybe, to invest in a Napa property. Well, guess what? I might have something absolutely exceptional for you. And that was the Flora Springs trilogy estate.
Right.
And
Wow,
so that's basically, and
fascinating.
this is where those dots eventually connected.
Right. Okay. Woodstock. So that shows some amazing gumption. Let's use the word gumption to show up at Woodstock. Take a picture of Jimi Hendrix, jump in their rented VW van. I'm joking. We don't know what kind of car it was.
Something along those lines.
drive to San Francisco. They probably went to Haight-Ashbury and all that part of that culture, and end up in the wine trade and buying an iconic winery. I mean, Flora Springs always was well respected in doing this. So the intrigue started a long time ago with Napa, not new world wine processing versus old school.
No.
Strictly.
No, that was never their approach
Yeah.
of that game. Never.
Well, that's interesting. So along comes Claude Rouquet, and what are you doing at this point? You're here in America working with the Burgundy house?
When I first moved in 12 years ago, yeah, I was in the trade. I was running distributor management on the West Coast, and then I did the same thing for Champagne House. And now,
how did you find out that there was something open at Cathayard?
Oh, it's always the same story. Somebody knew someone who I happen to know, and he said that maybe I should talk to Florence.
Right.
And next thing you know, I'm in my kitchen. It's 7 a.m. in the morning. I'm fixing breakfast for my girls, and the phone rings. It's a French number, and it's like, "Hi, it's Florence Katiar. Oh, hi. How are you?" And
Wow.
here we are. It's an hour conversation, and basically she told me you're hired.
So separate, they bought the land and the processing facility to make wines, which would have been Flora Springs vineyards. However, for the listeners, they can still find Flora Spring wines on the shelf because the proprietors kept the rights to the brand.
Correct.
And they still make wine under that brand to their specifications. And so as far as the farming is concerned, the vines, the processing, everything is now owned by Smith Lafitte.
Yeah, for the most part. So again, I insist it's the Flora Springs like trilogy estate
Yes.
that they bought. So it's 250 acres of land.
Wow.
It's essentially on the Rutherford AVA, 58 acres planted with grapes. We broke it down into 14 different plots, 4 plots in Saint Helena, 10 plots in Rutherford. That was where trilogy used to be made. I believe the Garvey and Combs families, so the 2 families behind Flora Springs, still owned and or farm parcels up and down the valley. Some great plots among them, I heard. But this particular land that is all contiguous, that's what really appealed to the Katiar. Also, it's not a chateau in Bordeaux, but because it's like very hilly and it goes up and down. It stretches from 200 feet to 1,200 feet. It's wild over there.
Yeah.
There are like bears and mountain lions and turkeys and whatnot. It's a real ecosystem. But it's at least it's a winery, and it's surrounded by all the vineyards, and it's all contiguous. So that kind of reminds a little bit of the Bordeaux model,
right.
which they're very obviously comfortable with. And
So far what I've tasted, what did I taste so far? The first one?
so right now we're trying. So today we make 3 wines, 3 red wines. We start with 2 Bordeaux blends, and the final wine is a single vineyard Cabernet Sauvignon. And the first wine we're trying is our Bordeaux blend called Hora, which is ancient Greek for seasons, plural. And it's a blend of Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, and a tiny little bit of Malbec.
All property.
Oh, it's all estate
estate.
fruits. It's all estate fruits, 100% estate fruits. And the Hora is our first level of Bordeaux blend, so to speak. And it is made to be approachable, to be comfortable, to be easy. And it essentially sourced from our plots on the Saint Helena bench. Mm-hmm. And I insist on the term bench because, being Burgundy trained,
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
there's like La Plaine, there's like
Yeah,
the flat,
La Plaine.
then you have like it starts like slowly picking up, So then you have the village, then you're on the hillside and you have Premier Cru, Grand Cru. Well, in Napa Valley, it's the same, except Napa Valley has 2 sides, right?
Right.
But it's the same concept. The valley floor is flat. We don't grow grapes on the valley floor. Some other people do it, and it's good, but it's technically speaking might not be the best, terroir.
Well, I suppose if you're taking the Burgundy model, you're assigning value as you go up the slope. Do you think that? Let's be frank. Let's be frank, Claude.
I don't think.
Claude, let's be frank.
I know.
Come
on.
In the Napa, but look, there's a whole argument that they should take the Highway 29 and call that, right bank and left bank, so to speak, because the terroirs are that much different.
Correct.
And I'm wondering if the consumer even cares. I mean, maybe a collector of these wines would care?
Some consumers care, people like us, because we're wine professional, we're wine lovers, but we're also wine customers, at the end of the day. So we care. A lot of people don't care in the sense that they rely on the name. They like this winery, they like this winemaker, and they're going to keep going with that. And then each winery can keep doing what they do.
Do you think that Burgundy model can be replicated, even if...
No, not.
It's just too much history, right?
Yeah, it's because it's just not comparable, because it's not like a plot by plot, like a climat by climat approach. I'm just saying that when you grow grapes on the valley floor, it's not where you're going to pick up the most interesting sense of place.
Right.
And the higher you go,
Correct.
the lower the yields, the more access to the bedrock, the less irrigation you need to do. And your wine is going to speak more to you in more specific terms, which is what we're trying to do. And it's funny because when you put your nose in there, like earlier today, I saw you were like, oh, wow, this smells really good.
Yeah.
Well, yes, it smells really good.
Yeah.
And why does it smell really good? Because we're picking up not too late. We're not using tons of new oak. We're using farming those plots that have good drainage, that they don't require a lot of irrigation. And basically you combine all those factors where you let the vineyards speak for themselves, and you end up with a great nose and a great texture and a great sense of place.
So that's the objective. Who's making those decisions? Based on, like we know already, we discussed this marketing of Napa wines and what people are drinking. And, I opened a Paso wine last night, and that's what I poured for the guests. And it's one of the most popular Paso wines that exists. And it's not inexpensive. And I literally can't drink it. And I brought a bottle of Lagrange, thanks to Sebastian, for myself, and I hid it in the back of the bar.
Sounds like me.
And I let one other person try it. But this is a decision you make. Is this a board decision? Is it the Cathayard's decision? Who's doing this idea? Is there a winemaker involved with?
You
guys get together. You're the sales manager. So
there's many answers to that very good question. Yeah. But I will I will first start with the concept of decision. It's not really a decision in the sense that, once again, if your goal is to make a wine that has something to say, you don't make a decision. You just do the right thing in order to get there.
Right.
And it's like so. And anyway,
But that's the way. I guess I can stop you there for a second, because I read an article years ago, and I brought this up before on the show with somebody, that the wine industry, and this is kind of what these people are talking about now that think they're going to disrupt it all, aren't creating the things that the consumer wants. When my argument is, but the wine industry isn't about that. The wine industry is about creating what the world wants, the world of wine, the nature of wine, the nature of vineyards and soil and climat. So, are we going to make wines that everybody's going to love, or are we going to make wines that we love to make because we're expressing what wine, in my opinion, should be?
It's like, as always, Paul, it's the answer is somewhere in between.
Yeah, okay.
As always, it's
you
always
got to sell stuff.
Always a question of balance. You want to sell it. You want to like it. You want people to like it. But we are take the Katiars, Smith Lafitte, Grand Cru classé in Bordeaux. Take Cathayard Vineyard, which is literally one of the best this west side of 29?
Yes.
On the hillside.
Yes.
We're halfway on the bench, halfway in the hills.
Yeah.
This is the best spot in Napa.
Yeah.
This is the best
It's
spot
beautiful.
in Napa. Take I won't drop names, but just look at the map.
Yeah.
Look at the names. This is the best spot. This is the best place in Napa. So we're very fortunate that we are. We make 50 to 60,000 bottles a year. So it's a small production. Yeah. At this point, because we are on that segment, we make the best wine we can possibly make from that particular area. That's the only guidance.
This is the most intoxicating Napa nose I've had in years.
Thank you. I will agree with you.
It is freaking amazing to just smell this. It's one of those wines that you may not drink. You just want to smell it.
Yeah, you're gonna smell it for a little while.
And what a compliment!
Just in order to grasp it all. Oh yeah, that's the
and
goal.
This is the 2020. Since we only have 5 minutes left, let's talk about the 2020. Since my wife and I visited, right? We were actually, we think we saw the lightning bolt that started the fires. This has got no smoke taint. There's not even remote nose of any kind. Like, in other words, a lot of people picked and then they try to take the smoke out with chemicals. Mm-hmm. Obviously, this is not the case. Mm-hmm. Why did that happen?
Because we picked up a little. So there was fires burning all around the valley for the most part of September. However, the real problem is the smoke. So the smoke, long story short, the smoke eventually was blown inside the valley, October maybe 5. So because the wind switched and whatnot. So whoever had not picked up at that point lost everything that was still hanging. Everything on our side was already picked up. We ended up October 2nd. And we did not schedule her early harvest because of the fires. That was scheduled like a while back. Because we pick up at 24 bricks. Typically, the goal is to pick up at 24, so we end up at 25, and we're happy. Whoever is using the recipe of picking up at 29 bricks,
right?
Yeah, those guys, they lost everything for sure.
Because we were there, and actually, I'm sorry, we saw the lightning strike of the 17 or 18 fires. The 20 fires, we went in afterwards, and we were in Oakville, in the soot and the dust and the ash on the grapes that were obviously not picked was just hanging there. And so is that because you were picking grapes based on a Bordeaux standard to create wines of structure with acid and fruit, and not so much alcohol?
If Bordeaux standard means pick up grapes, with decent balance between alcohol and phenolic, let's call it like Bordeaux standard. But if you ask me, it's not Bordeaux standard. It should be the standard.
The standard, right? Of course.
Like again, like it's actually pretty simple.
Yeah, well, it should be pretty simple. But the consumerism of wine, and it's always been this way. And I'll wrap up with this thought when we have 2 minutes left. That's what drives us. We need to sell stuff, but we also need to be true. And I call this now an honest glass of wine. It's what it was. It's what we picked. It's what we made, and it represents what we're supposed to be doing, and not playing games with it. Like in the picture behind you, of my father and I standing at the first tasting bar of my dad's store, and those wines were all honest wines. This is 1975. There was no.
Back then, it was an era of honest wines. It's the wines of the Concours de Paris.
Yes.
It's what I always say. People, back in 1976, the wines that actually kicked out the Grand Cru Burgundy and the Cru Classé Bordeaux were not the same wines as today.
No.
They were made differently.
No, different. And they were made by craftsmen.
But the pendulum is switching. It's kind of swinging back to a more, reasonable wine position overall.
I think
for a variety of reasons.
Certainly brands like this, certainly you being on the road and going and tasting and doing the things that you need to do to taste that. And it is a pendulum swing back to that, where the experience of wine is being brought to the people. Sit down and have a glass with me. Let's talk about it. And now you start to appreciate what's there instead of just because here's the experience that I don't think exists. That's an experience. And that is, I got this for $3 on the internet. That's not an experience. That's just, that's just bargaining.
That's you being a bad citizen.
Yeah. Such a pleasure having you there. I know you guys are busy today, and I was so happy you had a chance to stop by.
That's the single vineyard cab. You want to try it? You think the 2 first wines were good? Wow.
You know that? Oh, wow. The
Yeah,
spice
right.
component in there.
See, the
flour.
wow factor is really something we like to kind of play with, because those wines have a wow factor.
I'm gonna put this on tape, Sebastian. Send me 2 cases of each.
You go.
You have it? Yep. We're done. Cheers.
Okay, cool. Cheers.
Thank you for listening to Wine Talks with Paul, Cal, and Karen. Don't forget to subscribe, because there's more great interviews on their way. Folks, have a great time out there in the wine world. Cheers.